before, as it came over here and all over the world a few years ago and became very popular. It's a song about the lion hunt, a Wimbledon. Kutena ngathi andiva kahle nje webafowethu yintoni engathi niyanxila nje emaqabandini bathi wala mina isodli wamatha kusanqa mama
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the All African People's Revolutionary Party Weekly Pan-African News. My name is Monica. This is Onya Sawu. We are members of the New Mexico chapter coming from Tiwa territory here in Albuquerque. And we are going to share a little bit about who we are, what this is, and we also call in an ancestor. So we, the All African People's Revolutionary Party is a Pan-African organization, and what we are doing is organized for a one unified socialist Africa. So that means Africans everywhere wanting them involved in the movement, fighting for our liberation. This is Pan-African Weekly News. It is held every Thursday at noon live. You can watch it on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. So excited to be in community with you all, sharing information, as well as having the discussion with you all, dropping some knowledge in the comments as well. The ancestor we are beautifully calling in today is Malcolm X. Malcolm X was born May 19th on 1925. We are deeply appreciative to all of our ancestors, deeply appreciative to Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a revolutionary organizer, and what believed in so many things. He believed in going to the root of what is happening with our people's oppression. and not glossing over it at all. He was very unapologetically African and a Pan-Africanist. He talked about our people being oppressed and exploited here, and as well as in Africa. Wherever he went, he was all about organizing the people. Also, the other thing that he did is he shifted the conversation. Just stop talking about civil rights. We have to talk about human rights, and our human rights constantly being violated just because of the color of our skin. We were being violated, oppressed, and also he faced a lot of criticism that wasn't real about being nonviolent, because the calling for nonviolent did not address the continuous violence against our people. So that's where you heard by any means necessary. He believed that our people needed to be at community defense of all levels, whether that was taking up arms, whether that was organizing our people, taking care of them. He believed in community defense as a means for protection. And I agree, for sure. After leaving the Nation of Islam, he organized the Afro-American Unity, and that was focused on Pan-Africanism as well. And so we are just appreciative to Malcolm X. He believed us being unified, us having collective solutions was really critical. He saw how the enemy put us against one another, like they continuously do. And so he was all about calling that out, calling how the enemy has taught us how to hate one another and how we have to unpack that and not do that, because the only way that we can win this revolution is together. So we deeply appreciate Malcolm X teaching us so much. I have so much to learn about Malcolm X. I always learn new things anytime that I read about him or listen to his speeches. He also wrote a book, right? His autobiography, and he believed that he was going to be more valued in this world upon his death. But I know us as African valued him as living, valued him in his passing, because we continue to take his practices in all that we do. And so we thank you, Malcolm X, for just being here. And we know that there's work happening around Malcolm X nationwide, across the country, like in Africa and other places. Malcolm X is teaching and he's being celebrated nationwide. So we appreciate all his contributions to the movement. And also what we do on this show is we do a land acknowledgement. So we are in Tiwa territory. This is so-called Albuquerque, New Mexico. We believe in land back. It's more than words. It is what we fight for in solidarity with our indigenous comrades. We believe that no matter how long has been stolen, it needs to be returned to the indigenous community. So we believe in their land back. We also believe in all oppressed folks' land back. We also organize to fight for our land back. So we just appreciate being able to call in from this show, call in and do this show on Tiwa territory. Next, I'm going to share a few updates. I don't know if y'all knew, we are still in a pandemic. Yes, we are. We are still in a pandemic in Tiwa territory. Sometimes you're not sure because there's things just opening up. There has been 160 positive new cases. There are, the mask mandates have been lifted. And so it's going to be up to like certain stores and restaurants if they're wearing masks. Of course, because we're still in a pandemic, even if you are vaccinated, we encourage you to wear masks as well wherever you go, because how the COVID-19 spreads is it's viral. So no matter where you are, I know it's very challenging. We've been in this pandemic over a year. There's, graduations, there's families, there's a lot of things going on that people are wanting to do in community together. Please remember to be safe. Wearing your mask protects yourself. Wearing your mask protects the community. Remember, we're all one community here to protect one another. So we're still in a pandemic. Please remember to wear your mask at all times. And I am going to turn it over to Anya Sabu, who's going to share more about the amazing interview that we did. So happy to pass it on.
Thanks so much, Monica, for that very great intro. And I second wearing a mask, man, when the CDC was like, y'all don't need to wear a mask if you're fully vaccinated. Also, we're not going to enforce any way of checking. I was like, damn, like that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. So I personally am going to continue to wear a mask, not because I personally am super scared of getting COVID, but because I don't want to catch it and give it to anybody else. It's still a pandemic. So thank you so much, Monica. But as Monica said, we have a really awesome pre-recorded video for y'all today. We recently interviewed a revolutionary African woman, a cadre in the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the All African Women's Revolutionary Union. Her name is Moya Pembeli Mzuri. She has been a longtime member of the APRP, and we talked to her about the role of African women in the revolution, about how she came to join the party and why she came to join the party, how she became to know herself as African, about how African women must show up in the revolution, about what the revolution must do to show up for us. So it's a really wide-ranging and also really energizing and inspiring interview. Like, we did it Sunday morning, and like the whole rest of the day, I was like floating on a cloud because I was like so inspired, and it gave me like so much momentum. Even for like the rest of the week, it's like lingering. So we hope you enjoy this interview. We'll be in the comments like interacting with you. Definitely feel free to share your thoughts or any questions or comments that come up as you're watching. And when we come back, we can have a brief discussion about it before moving on to the rest of the program. So without further ado, we present to you an interview with Moya Mzuri, who again is a cadre with the All African Women's Revolutionary Union and the All African People's Revolutionary Party in our California chapter. All right, thank you so much. So first question is, who is Moya Mzuri? How did you come to join the APRP?
Okay, Moya Mzuri Nana Yao Fibia Pambili joined the party as a student, a 19-year-old student at UC Berkeley. And just as a context, I grew up post-Black Panther Party. And I mean, right at the cusp, I graduated from high school in 1973. So the whole Black Power issue, even in my high school, and again, more context, I grew up in Compton. So as in Compton, you know, Compton was at that time primarily African and is very, you know, very Black. I mean, my high school and most of my schools were predominantly Africans, right? So I had the Afro, you know, we just grew up in a time where it was, you know, we were even starting to see commercials. There was Afro Sheen and it was Watu Wazuri use Afro Sheen, you know, so it was this whole thing about we African, right? So that was high school. So by the time I got to college, I knew I was African, but I didn't know, you know, pretty much there was so much drama in our community and in other communities post Black Panther Party because of the COINTELPRO attack on Black Panthers. So you didn't hear much about the Black Panther Party post that, except all of the destruction that had happened. And so being up in Northern California, Oakland had a lot of trauma from what had happened. And so on campus, there was still a lot of activism, and it was a lot about apartheid, post the various uprisings. There was a lot of African students that were really in exile that had been run out of South Africa, Zania, South Africa. So we were running into a lot of students, and there were a lot of students from different parts of the continent. And so that interjection and interaction with students kind of galvanized discussions around Africa, what we gonna do now, you know, and you know how you sitting on the wall and we talking about, we wish Malcolm X was alive today and da 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 da. And again, those are, you know, valid questions, what we gonna do. So when a couple of organizers came on campus, and John Trimble was one of them, and a couple of people that they had recruited were on campus, and they were talking about the party and stuff. It was a bunch of us that were having these discussions. We had I was in this African music and dance ensemble. This brother who used to be the national director of dance in Ghana, it was his first year teaching a class, so we all joined. A bunch of us from the dorm had joined his music class. Then it became a dance class. Then it became an ensemble, and people from the community joined. So you had this fusion of community and campus, and then the party came. And I tell you, about 60 to 70% of us from the ensemble joined the APRP. We were all dancing together. We were all performing together. We were all hanging out together, and we were, a family with this Ghanaian family. And so joining the party was just, it was a natural evolution from knowing you're African and struggling over the issues, and then being in this collective, connecting with Africa. And then these folks come up here and talk about, let's unify and liberate Africa. We were like, yeah, that's what we gonna do, And so it was just a natural evolution for us. And so we joined and we started studying, and, we were having these long discussions. I mean, work study circle was long, in those days, there was no 3-hour limit, or 3 to 5 hours. It was like however the discussion took, and the long discussion and the arguments and the, discourse and all of that. We just engaged fully. And the freedom also versus some of the things in other organizations was that no one was trying to shut women down. We had as much freedom to talk and struggle as a brother. And it wasn't any of this, domination. And so we felt free in that space. And that was like almost the only space where we felt politically free. So, and then we were encouraged to do work, even without training. They would like, go up there and do orientation or go into San Jose. So we started, organizing, and we were encouraged to work. There was really no cadre. And so it was all of us in work study that started doing all types of work. And we were community and campus at the time. And so we felt a part of something, as well as being constantly educated, every 2 weeks. And so that's how I joined the party. That was the environment. And it was very empowering. I was learning more there than I was learning in the university setting. And in fact, it really elevated my study and my exchange on campus. And, in terms of whatever my studies were, I interjected them into, into the classroom. So it was probably the most engaging and empowering experience I've ever had, and continues to be. I hope I wasn't too long on that.
That was beautiful. I was getting chills. Okay, so you kind of already answered the question of why Pan-Africanism. You already understood you were an African, and then the APRP came and was like, let's unify Africa, and you're like, yes, okay, I'm in. But why did you become a socialist?
Pan-Africanism, the way it was defined, there was no separation because logically, and again, maybe this is because my major was economics, the logic is that if enslavement created capitalism, liberation cannot include capitalism. And so, it was a part of our definition that Pan-Africanism has to include socialism because it's contradictory to include the system that enslaved you and, massacred, your people, the indigenous people all over the world, etc. So the whole idea of equality, of justice, of balance, of distribution of resources, all of that was a part of Pan-Africanism. So there was never a separation. And again, the way we began understanding and studying Pan-Africanism is that it's been an evolution of understanding the objective over the time from its initial discussions and formations. And not only that, but even the evolution of our coming from the clan, the tribe, the empire, the regions that came together. You know, when we talk about the Mali, empire, the Zimbabwe empire, etc., these are just regional formations. And as we moved from Southern Africa, and we moved up towards following the Nile River up to Kemet, Nubia, etc., all of that is Pan-Africanism. And, you know, as Kwame used to say, the continent was moving towards Pan-Africanism before the European set foot on the continent. It would have been unified had not been for colonialism. So the evolution of Pan-Africanism and even its meaning has continued to evolve as well. So by the time I was in the party, it was clear that Pan-Africanism included socialism.
Thank you so much for breaking that down, and just simply breaking it down. Like, we can't have a system that enslaved us and did genocide. We need a different system. Very simple, to the point, bam.
Right, right.
I appreciate that. I'm going to definitely be sharing that. The next question we have for you is, what is the All-African Women's Revolutionary, what is the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union?
So our union is really just a continuation of the African liberation struggle. When we started discussing the need for the AWRU, we were guided to begin studying other revolutionary women's wings, particularly in Africa, Cuba, etc. So as we studied revolutionary women's wings in the movement, what we found was that because of colonialism and imperialism, women had been relegated to positions, this is all post-communalism. So women had been relegated to positions that separated them from the general part of society that directed, owned and controlled, organized society, which was really an antithesis of how we lived in communalism. And so women being oppressed, the only solution to fighting women's oppression and to fighting a national oppression was for women to be a part of the liberation struggle. Women needed to organize, they needed to be trained, they needed to be educated. And because of the brutality of colonialism, women and girls were being raped in front of their families, attacked, brutalized, put in, horrible conditions. And women and girls, some often ran away from their families to join the liberation struggle, because what they said, and again, in those days, we were actually reading texts from their stories, and I actually put together a compilation of various women's wings, and I'm going to have to republish that and get that to other sisters. But what women said is, like Tatina Sila, and Josina Michelle, they said, we have a right to fight, right? So the women's wing became the formation of all women having the right to fight, having the necessity to fight, because if 50%, and this is also a study of these liberation struggles, is that many of them only became really victorious in their advance against colonialism and the armies when that other 50% that had not been engaged, when that other 50%, which were women and youth, were trained and armed, they advanced, taking the rest of the territory, pushing the enemy out, and winning their independence. So it was clear that 50% of your population that cannot be left out of the liberation struggle. They need to be armed, trained, and fighting. And that's how you, I mean, it's simple math almost to that extent, but it's also a completion of the liberation struggle. You can't have one half of the population still held back and discriminated against and not engaged and relegated to certain position while the other half maintain power. Liberation has to be total and complete. So when the Women's Union was formed, it was formed with that in mind, meaning that every space where the liberation struggle existed, we needed to be there. I mean, we even started, people might think it was petty, but for instance, we were formed in 1980. So when the Million Man March, was being organized, of course, the Nation of Islam came to Kwame and said, "We want you to speak." And it was like, "No, it will be a woman and a man on the stage." And so, and to a certain extent, I think some organizations thought that might be petty. But what we said is that you need the voice of every sector of our society, and had we had a youth wing, we would want a youth representative from the youth wing, and so that is where we were. We come to liberate every space. And that's the role of the AWRU. And that is still our role, and to a certain extent, we have not built the infrastructure inside of the AWRU that we need to. We need to have departments or committees that help guide. What are the needs of the AWRU? Is it childcare? Is it training? Do we need help on speaking? Do we need help on local organize? How do women organize in certain spaces? How do other genders organize in certain spaces? Whatever the needs are, we need to be able to break those things down and create those departments and have women not only coordinate those departments inside, but report. This is what is happening. And that's when I did the 40th anniversary presentation, I talked about that 10th anniversary, how we broke down, this is the percentage of youth we have. This is the percentage of single parents, in terms of sisters that are single parents. This is the percentage that have functional YPI that or no YPI. This is the, whatever these are the percentages of students. These are the percentages of workers, to break down those things to say, okay, what do we need? Because again, I had a young son, what do I need? So when we come back, I said, well, we need to have the circles organized as providing YPI so that you can go on campus. And so we started organizing locally so that our circles, I could, drop my son off to another comrade so that I could go on campus and I wouldn't have to take him with me, and vice versa. And that's how we worked so that our needs would be met so that we could fully participate. And my experience is based on, I can't be able to speak unless I am given an opportunity to speak. And so I got training and development and, and reading materials and whatever was needed. That was the thing that the AWRU had to do on a local level. But what we need to do is create the structure internal to the AWRU so that we can be able to see the needs and work those needs out and find within the admin committee, program committee, and PE committee, how can we provide those resources and that training and the needs to all AWRU and to all gender that are in need of that kind of assistance. So that's the role of the AWRU. And we're still having those discussions and trying to look for ways to improve and develop. And again, everyone that joins that identifies as a woman, as female, is in the AWRU. But we have not begun to break down, so what is the membership right now? What do that membership need? What kind of training? How can we provide that? How can we get them access to travel and get them training? How can we be able to pull other, women's wings together so that they can interact and learn from other women's wings? Because I spend more time with other women's wings, interacting with them, learning from them, because they have more experience in real nation building, where they are really looking at the various needs of their society and their party. What do we need? And they do more of that. Because again, they're actually we're in a situation where the party is our whole calling is to unify all parties and movements towards Pan-Africanism. But women's wings on the ground are to liberate their territory and to provide the needs of those women that are going to carry out the completion of the liberation struggle through to socialism. And so it's quite different, and so we have to get the mindset of the nation building concept internal to the AWRU. So that we can begin to meet the needs of the AWRU, to empower the AWRU to do, train, develop into the leadership, which means also holding spaces of power, political spaces. We must, because we can't even execute our needs without us holding those spaces.
Thank you so much. And for folks, the abbreviation YBI stands for the Young Pioneers Institute, which is the youth wing of the APRP. Also, you also pretty thoroughly answered this next question, but just briefly, like there's some people that have the line that a revolutionary organization doesn't necessarily need a women's wing, that you can integrate whatever women need into like the main thrust of the organization. Why do you think revolutionary organizations need a separate women's wing?
Well, they've proven that, historically, and I'd say it's really critical that we begin putting together reading materials, because these things have already been proven, that the liberation struggles in all territories where they actually had to fight for their liberation did not become victorious until the other half of the population. I mean, just look at the general population, and what had happened in liberation struggles is that the women were usually held back in a contested, and again, looking from the Nkrumah's perspective, you have the liberated zone, the contested zone, and the enemy held zone. So in an enemy held zone, you have combatants fighting the enemy to gain their liberation territories. And so you usually are going section by section, village by village. The women are usually relegated to the areas of just being able to be held somewhere and protected. So when in the contested zones, they saw that what was happening is as they advanced in one region, the enemy would come back to the other region where the women and children were held and go and take that area, because there was no one to defend that territory. And so what the revolutionaries saw on the ground is that what we need to do is to arm the women to hold their own section, or integrate the area so that the women are also trained in militarily and politically, so that they can advance, and so there would be no territory that wasn't armed and defended. And so as they began to advance region by region, every territory that was liberated was defended and armed by men and women. And so as they began to advance, there was no area that wasn't defendable. So they were beaten at every road until they expelled the colonizer, the imperialists, from their territory completely. So what that says is that women can only come back and know and be trained and developed and know what their needs are for them to be able to determine what type of training do I need? What kind of role can I play? How can I interact? Who's going to watch my children if I have children? What role can I, maybe some people have more education, maybe they're literate, maybe they're not literate, and they can provide this kind of training and do that kind of work. And only women know what their needs are. And so that is why women have to be able to create this union. And things are not as people think. I think oftentimes people have this notion that, oh, you're in a revolutionary struggle, everyone's going to give you everything that they need, but you don't come from out of colonialism and not have people all impacted with a colonialized mindset, where there's not going to be patriarchy, where there's not going to be chauvinism, where people, and and even our own brothers don't have a sense that their identity has to be connected to their power and domination over, over somebody, or everybody. And so oftentimes positions, and particularly positions of power, are seen as a tool or role to dominate. And again, that's coming from a colonial mindset. We have all penetrated by colonialism, ideologically, politically, socially, culturally, religiously, language. Colonizers have dominated us with all of their ilk, with all of their culture, all of their aspect. So we have to come back and begin addressing each and every aspect of our being by looking at it and beginning to address that. And when you put women in positions of power and they begin to break down those walls that held them back and held others back, that breaking down those social, cultural, political walls, even the language itself, it begins to find all of these sectors where we need to liberate our consciousness. And that's what the process does in a very organic way. And again, that's why women have to be there, because it's an organic process.
Thank you so much. You actually shifted into the next question around liberating consciousness and the impacts of how colonialism created patriarchy. And so the next question is, how does organizing for liberation of women and marginalized genders and against patriarchy contribute to the struggle to build Pan-Africanism?
I think that based on everything that I've said, the organic process creates unity. It creates, it begins to liberate by breaking down the walls that held us back, that keep us divided, that doesn't provide the training, the education, the integration that's necessary in the liberation process. It's a natural organic process. And through that process, we oftentimes, Africa must unite, and we kind of just, have these code phrases, but real unity is organic. And unity is not just unity of all Black people, or unity of all, indigenous people, or unity of, the Cubans in the village. Unity also means all gender fluidly work together. They work as one in the same direction for the same purpose. It's an organic coming together, like molecules that come together, atoms that come together. It's an organic process. Our body works in unity. And as one part of it is attacked, all of the cells come together to deal with that. Ain't no squabbling about who this, who got that, who got the sun. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the process. It should be organic. Oftentimes, though, under colonialism, we see things from a very segmented, and that's how colonialism and European systems, they work to segment, and everything is secular, but in fact, society has to be fluid and organic, because there's so many elements of us that weave, and so that even men, even our boys, will be liberated and they'll be free. Because how can you be your best being if you can't elevate every aspect of your being and your understanding and your integration and your interaction in society? And so it is just an organic process. Everyone grows, everyone develops, everyone benefits. Therefore, no one has power over the other. No one wants power over the other. We all want to work for a higher level of society. That's what the objective is. It's not just for African people, it's for everyone.
Thank you so much. It's so beautiful.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get, but I mean, it's like the, uh, I don't really know how to explain it any other way than how nature is explained. You know what I'm saying? And so oftentimes people see things as these things out here, but that's why the environment and humans in the environment are all suffering and sick, because we've really secularized everything.
That's really true. And we are taught by capitalism and by colonialism that it's like every man for himself. We're taught that we are a separate being from nature and not as dependent on it as all other forms of life on earth. And so you can see it. You can see it. And like one thing I really appreciate about the APRP is like precisely what you said, that we're working to build unity among all sectors of African people organically, that we're working to come together so that everybody understands their place, everyone understands what they have to contribute to our collective liberation. I see other people who claim the title of Pan-Africanism arguing about religion, saying if you believe this, you can't be free, or arguing about gender, saying if you identify this way, you can't be free. And we're just like, no, we're bringing all of us. We're bringing all of us with us. Like the only time we're like, you need to work that out is if you're a class traitor. So it's like, so
Okay.
it feels like the best. To me, it feels like the way that the APRP conceptualizes Pan-Africanism, our political objectives is what's actually going to build unity among African people and overcome these like artificially imposed divisions. So I just really appreciated the way that you expressed that.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes out of talking about consciencism, really going into the book of consciencism and really talking about the philosophy, of that. And I think that as it began to evolve, we begin to see more and more the organic elements of it, of Pan-Africanism. Yeah.
So next question we have for you is, what is the responsibility of African women and marginalized genders when it comes to the struggle to build Pan-Africanism, and how can African women being organized help Africa?
I think I've talked about that. I mean, even our relationship with men, I think men suffer as well. And so I think our role is that we all have to find our place in the liberation struggle. No matter how minute, if you think I can't do this or I can't do that, there is something everyone can do. And I think what we have to do is to be creative in finding ways for everyone to be able to play a role in the liberation struggle, no matter your age, no matter your gender, and even in terms of class. The whole idea of committing class suicide, is the whole idea of saying that the people, humanity, and life is more important. And so I'm willing to share my resources and integrate myself into the liberation struggle to play the highest role I can play for all of humanity and for life. And so I think that everything that I've said, it's for everyone, but women in particular, in terms of the AWRU, when we find our place and create those elements that begin to address and remove the obstacles, everyone will benefit. But it's the struggle and the process of being able to figure out how to do it. What do I need? How do I address my needs? And I'm not saying my needs, our needs, how do we do that? What do we have to address? What do we have to do? Some of it may mean, we need to take more than 50% of the jobs, the positions as coordinators. We need to break down and look at what we need. We need to empower our youth, create a youth wing so that they begin to see what are the needs of the youth. How can we better organize and recruit them? Because it's the youth wing that should be leading our recruitment. All of those things are the things that will benefit everyone. And so I think that everyone has to find their place. And I was reading one of the last conferences of the National Union of Eritrean Women that they had. And one of the things that was said is that women, that initiative it should be the highest principle for every person is taking the initiative to say, what can I do? What role can I play? And so it shouldn't be people begging you, please do this, please. This is your liberation. Take the initiative. What is I need the initiative. And so it was saying, women need to take the initiative to get the education and the training they need. And collectively we can remove the obstacles so that everyone benefits. So I think also, and I've said it so many times in terms of the AWRU initiative, and I think that's what we all lack to a certain extent. And I think it's because in colonialism, they have created the welfare mentality. Don't worry, the colonizer will take care of all your needs, little slave. We'll handle all that. We've created welfare for you. Maybe there's homelessness, but if you beg hard enough, we'll find you a home, or a house. You'll still have to pay rent. Your salary is still not going to be able to provide for your needs, but don't worry, the colonizer provides, or there's this illusion that the colonizer provides. And there's really a welfare mentality. So that's why the masses aren't involved in every aspect of their liberation, because they believe in what the colonizer says. They believe the promises of their colonizer parties, political parties, etc. So they don't see the need to have their own liberation struggle. So it takes a tremendous amount of work for us to provide a political education vehicle, because we don't have anywhere the capability to compete with the propaganda of capitalism, all of the media that they have. But this is what we must do. And this is what we are doing. This is what many, many liberation movements and parties are doing, is being able to break down and show why this doesn't work. The colonizer is not doing it. We must do it. In fact, the colonizer does not have our interests at heart. And so this is what we must do. And it's that initiative that we've got to instill, that we've got to inspire into our people to want to be a part of it, want to be a part of the liberation struggle.
That was a really refreshing answer. This is like an anecdote, but like yesterday, I guess like Colin Kaepernick released a book about police abolition and police terrorism. And on the cover of the book, he had an illustration by Emory Douglas, who of course did the illustrations for the Black Panther Party newspaper. It was an illustration of an African woman with natural hair and dark skin holding like the Black Panther Party newspaper. And on Twitter, there were all these African women deeming like, don't make us the face of this. Don't make us look angry and militant. Like, we want to be feminine and soft. And I'm like, feminine and soft? First of all, I'm a revolutionary African woman, and Mzuri is a revolutionary African woman, Monica is a revolutionary African woman, and we are feminine. We are soft, but we are also warriors, because that's part of what revolutionary African woman identity is. And so like the idea that women would see a representation of us, one of us, like on the front line, and be offended by that, I was like, what happened? And I feel like the way that you just like broke it down explains it. Like, we are identifying with like the colonizer's conception of what a woman is, and then getting mad at people for portraying us as warriors, even though we always have been. So yeah.
Because here's the thing, when I look at that picture, again, one of the things that I learned early on being a part of the African Music and Dance Ensemble is language. So oftentimes, even when I hear the word soft, I'm thinking, what does that mean? In different languages, soft means something completely different. Hard means something. So when I look at that picture, I'm not looking at those words. I'm looking at power. I'm looking at education. I'm looking at somebody who is saying, yes, we need this knowledge. I'm looking at something completely different. And it's because my conception of language is different. And I can see the impact of colonialism on the masses of the people because they're trained to, it's more than training, it's programming. They're programmed to identify certain things. There are buzzers there are buzzers images. You remember the red, if you saw red, it meant communism, you know, you couldn't even rail red, you know, and my grandmother was like, don't be wearing red, that means you a hooker, you know, or what, I mean, really, we just had, and then I'm thinking, Grandma, do you know anything about Shango? Now, don't be saying no, Shango, that's, you know, blah, 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 you know, and again, it's this whole programming of being a colonized person that really takes away from our real third eye, is what they used to say, you know, and they still say, is our real intuitive ability to see past the programming and see the truth of the thing. And that's why we can't even look at a picture and know what it means to us, only what we're programmed to respond to, which is part of our insanity. You know, it's, I mean, it creates a level of insanity when you can't even see yourself for who you really are. It creates insanity. And everything I see, you know, I've gotten to, and I don't want to get off script, but when I get on social media now, I'm looking at these big groups, you know, on social media. It's, you know, whether it's DL Hughley or Essence or something like that. And I'll just jump on and they'll be talking about something and I'll just jump on and say, we are a colonized people. And this is the reason why we do what we do. We say what we say. We're reacting the way we're acting. And post-traumatic slave syndrome is not even enough to explain what African people have gone through, indigenous people have gone through over the last 800 years. And so, you know, what we need to be talking about is, instead of emphasizing what we did, is how can we free ourselves? And boy, do I get responses, but I love it. And again, I don't even bother to answer it. I just keep on to the next one. Who else can I mess up? You know, it's like, you know, at Jammu, who just like, I'll just like throw this bomb and just start a fire. It's just like, okay, all right, where can I drop the next one? You know, and I just keep it moving and just move on. I don't even respond, you know, but it'll be a lot of people that it was a moment of reflection. And that's what we all need. And that's what the party does, and that's what all of our movements need to do and all of our organizers need to do. And so, but that initiative, you know, will spark an opening of, wow, I have a role I can play, there's something that I can do, there's a place for me. And that's what we need to do, and we need to create the environment for that.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Mzuri. I know you got to run to an orientation or a circle meeting, so we don't want to keep you that
Yeah.
longer. But we appreciate you so much and all of your wisdom. This has been really incredible. I'm glad I started my day this way.
Thank you. I appreciate you all. I love my AWRU. Every time I meet, you know, Sister Monique, I'm so glad to meet you. Every time I meet new folks, again, I'm just so inspired, and it's a fountain of more than youth. You know, people talk about the fountain of youth, but what gives me energy to be a part of this is you all, honestly. And that's why I spend more time with you all than I do. You know, I'm not trying to say, you know, the older cadres or whatever, but I am so inspired by young people that are coming into this movement and it's energizing me to do better, to be better, and to be a better representation in whatever I can of a human being in the revolution, and to inspire other people to be a part of this revolutionary process. So the concept of forward ever, backwards never is real. You know, I want to go forward. I only want to look back to learn the lessons, but I want to constantly go forward. So thank you, Ndosi, Inkosa, Asante Sana, Madasi, Amasa Jinalo, and in many languages. Thank you all. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. So first question is, who is Moya Mzuri? How did you come to join the APRP?
Okay,
Right, we're back. We're back. Hello, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. So,
Video started again. 1 second. Okay, we're back. Hello. We hope that y'all enjoyed watching that video as much as we enjoyed doing the interview. It's really incredible to talk to the elders within the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I'm so grateful to be in a multi-generational revolutionary African organization because there's like some wisdom in this party, y'all. There's like some very like genuinely good and like brilliant people in this organization that are like willing to share the things they've learned and their wisdom with us. And like we're able to learn so much. Like we had a Jamu this last week, we had Mzuri this week, and hopefully y'all can see like what the culture of the APRP is like from these interviews. But I see like a lot of comments came through. I see a lot of love for Mzuri. I see a lot of her words resonating with folks. So yeah, Monica, what are your thoughts upon watching that video again?
I was just graced by more medicine. It was so beautiful to watch it again because I was in it, and just, knowing that we all play a role and how that's so important, because we have to be connected to something, right? Connected to something to continue to move forward. And so I also took from it, like, disrupt space everywhere we go, as well as liberate space wherever we go. And so it was just beautiful to listen to again. I'm here for it all. And it was just medicine. It was just medicine that we need to hear, especially as African women in the revolution. So I'm just, again, inspired by all the wisdom that was dropped, that was shared. And I look forward to reading the book. So thank you so much for dropping that in the comments.
Yeah, Conscientism is on the work study ideological list, so we are going to read it in work study. It's like a very dense book. One time I tried to read it by myself and I was like, oop, no, gotta do some work study. So I look forward to doing it with New Mexico chapter. Mac, editor with her communist greetings, comrade, in the chat is saying good elders deserve the world. I absolutely agree. Mzuri has been in the struggle for decades. The Jamu has been in the struggle for decades. There are so many elders within the All African People's Revolutionary Party who have dedicated their lives to the liberation of our people. They're not gonna get like, $10,000 speaking fees. They're not gonna be on CNN. They're not gonna have like that mainstream clout, but day by day, hour by hour, they are struggling for our people. They have dedicated their lives to this work, and they're teaching the next generation of leaders. Like Mzuri said at the end, people like us give her energy, which is like so humbling. Like she's taught us so much, and she's still in it to bring us with her, to bring us to where she is. So it's just so incredible. Like I deeply believe in the value of intergenerational organizations. So often in the movement, it feels like we're reinventing the wheel because we're not bringing in our elders and all generations of our people. But in the APRP, we do. A thing that she said that really resonated with me, two things. One is that women and marginalized genders have like a right to be in the revolution. We have a right to fight. It's not a situation where the men are going to take up the guns and single-handedly wage a revolution and we'll just be in the back cheering. No, like we have to be fighting side by side. We have to be on the front lines. We have to be in roles of leadership within all aspects of the struggle. And we have the right to be there. We have the right and also the necessity to fight as revolutionary African women and marginalized genders. Like even if we have to like fight to create a space, we have the right to do that because this is our fight too. We have an equal role to play. And the other thing she said that, everything she said really resonated with me. But the other thing that stood out to me was about like the part where she talked about like taking the initiative, about understanding that we're not just like, this is not just like a hobby. It's not just like a social club. This is like a revolutionary organization. We are engaged in the revolutionary movement that's going to liberate our people, which means it will liberate ourselves, which means that we have to find our place within this ecosystem of struggle and take the initiative to build up that place, like find your lane and commit to that lane and do the work. It's not about waiting for someone to tell you what to do. It's about finding what you're good at and making your contribution, whatever that looks like. So that part is just like I feel like only one part of the struggle is recruiting people and getting them into the work study. But then the second part is making them understand that they have a role to play, that we all have different roles. They're not going to look the same, but you have a lane. You have a role to play and you have to find that lane and commit yourself to it. So that initiative part is like so key. It's so key. And when she talked about how when she first joined the APRP and they were basically just like, okay, go do an orientation, okay, go do an event. Like that's what it was like for me. I was in Oregon chapter with the Jamu, and he was like, "Are you gonna go speak on the stage?" And I was like, "What?" like I had never done it before, and he was like, "You better go." Like I had never spoken to public before. I joined the PRP, had never organized like a meeting before, had never done so many things that I do on a consistent basis now. And the understanding was like, you at least have to try. Like even if you don't know what you're doing, we can give you guidance, we can give you help, but you gotta try. Like there's no like, oh, I'm scared. There's no like, oh, I'm not good at that. There's no like, there's no getting out of it. Like you have to make your contribution. You have to show up in all the ways you can. That was just the expectation. And because I was kind of like thrown into the deep end, I just had to learn. And now I'm really good at it. Look at that. So yeah, just really appreciate the hands-on learning, as someone put it. Yeah, look at me now. I used to like get up on stage and like literally like read from a paper and like my voice would be shaking. It would be like 500 people and I would just be staring at the paper. And now I don't need it. Now I can just go off the dome, which is practice.
Go on your sawu.
Word, Marion, good afternoon, Marion. Marion saying, it's everyone's struggle. Absolutely. We all have a role to play. Oh yeah, the other magical part was when she was talking about revolution as like an organism, as like atoms relating to each other, as like the parts of your body working together. Like that metaphor is like so powerful to me. Because like every part of your body doesn't work the same. They all have their own lane. They all have their own role to play. And they come together in a harmonious whole to keep you alive. And so when you think about revolution like that, you understand not everybody's going to have the same role in the revolution, but everybody has a part to play. Every single role is important, like taking minutes, facilitating meetings, going to pick stuff up, making deliveries to the elders, putting together care packages. Like every single person has a lane, making flyers, doing the show. Like every single person has a role to play. Every single person has a lane. You just got to find what yours is. And once you find that lane, man, it's amazing. It's amazing. I feel like Monique is finding it.
I'm finding it.
I see it. Jamila's in the chat. Afternoon, comrade. Jamila's a comrade in the APRP. Jamila says, yes, you state facts. People tend not to respond. When you ask people who complain if they're in an organization, you hear crickets. And then also says, comrade Mzuri, I'm glad to be in the struggle for liberation with her, forward ever. Absolutely. I have learned so much from Mzuri. So much from Mzuri. Mzuri used to be the AWU coordinator for the whole world. She was holding down the AWU for the whole world by herself for years and formed a body known as the Union Council, which took on the leadership after she stepped down. And so now we have a Union Council made up of representatives from the AWU from like all over the planet, from Africa, from Canada, from the Caribbean, from the United States, and from Europe, all together in this leadership body that Mzuri helped form. So shout out to Mzuri, absolutely, not just for her mentorship, not just for her leadership, but also for like the work she did to build this organization. What else are y'all saying? There's so many comments. Like the people love Mzuri, Monica. People love Mzuri, and that's great because we also love Mzuri. Let's see. CJ says, it took almost 30 years for me to destroy the colonial image I had of myself, like Franz Fanon talks about in Black Skin, White Mass. Absolutely. That discourse about Colin Kaepernick's books, it like still really bothers me. So for folks that don't know, we talked about in the video, Colin Kaepernick helped release a book about abolition. He wasn't even the main person that wrote it. It was actually like an anthology of essays about abolition that included many authors that were African women. It was just like, I guess, like curated by Colin Kaepernick or something like that. And so they had his name on the cover because if you see Colin Kaepernick, people are going to buy the book. That's basically what it was. But the cover of the book had an image by Emory Douglas showing dark-skinned African women with natural hair selling the Black Panther Party newspaper. And it produced this discourse on Twitter where these like deeply confused and frankly colonized African women were complaining about being represented in the struggle. They were like, don't make us the face of abolition. Don't make us the face of defunding the police. I even saw some of them saying African women need the police. And I was like, wait a second. Aren't African women the single fastest growing prison population in the United States? But you're saying we need the police? Aren't there like police accused of raping and abusing us on a daily basis? Aren't we like extremely criminalized? How are you saying? What kind of middle class? Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? So like, there was all this discourse about these African women who were talking about how they didn't want to be the face of the struggle, and I'm like, that ship has sailed, y'all. We're already on the front line. We're already fighting. Like, if you don't want to fight, you could be scared in the corner, but we've been here. We've been in the front of the struggle. We've been leading. The Black Panther Party was majority women, quiet as kept. So like, if y'all don't want to be represented that way, I'm sorry, but our people are not free, and we're gonna keep fighting, and we're gonna keep being on the front line. But that discourse was really like, I was just confused. I was confused.
I'm glad I missed it.
Mad. It made me honestly really angry. Like, we were in the Hood Communist chat, and I was like cussing them out, to be quite honest with you. Trying to keep it PG-13. But like, yeah, but like I said in the video, it's because we're colonized. It's because we have internalized the colonizer's conception of what a woman is. According to the colonizer's conception of what a woman is, we're in the house pregnant with babies. And that is what white womanhood is meant to be. We're supposed to be like delicate flowers. But African womanhood has never been that. Even before colonization, African womanhood was not that. We were leaders, we were healers, we were warriors, we were queens, we were fighting side by side with our people, we were helping to build and maintain nations. That's always been what African womanhood was. So this colonizer conception of femininity is not something that's ever been for us. It's actually been used to exclude us from what the definition of woman is. And so to see African women reacting so violently to the idea of a sister on the front line of the struggle just shows how effective the programming of colonization is. That's really all it is. It's just a bunch of colonized sisters flapping their gums on the feed. And that's as nicely as I could put that. But anyway.
Time to unprogram. Come on now. Let's unprogram together.
So yeah, that was the PE section of the program. We deeply appreciate all of your comments. We're really glad that you loved Mzuri. We also love Mzuri, and we get to work with her all the time. So yeah, thank y'all so much for all your participation and your comments, for tuning in. We are going to move on to the next part of the program, and also feel free to keep commenting your thoughts and your questions, and we'll keep reading them. But we're going to move on to the next part of the program because we got to wrap this by 1:30 Mountain Time. So next up, we want to talk about what's going on with the All African People's Revolutionary Party here in Tiwa Territory and also around the world. So here in Tiwa Territory, the progress on the Pan-African Community Garden continues. Last weekend, we got plants in the ground, y'all. We got plants in the ground. We planted tomatoes, we planted peppers, we planted cucumbers. A comrade donated some marigold plants. So we planted that too. For folks that don't know, marigolds are edible flowers, and marigolds are also work to like repel insects from tomato plants and pepper plants. They like trap the insects are drawn to the marigold and they leave the tomato plants alone. We put a marigold in the bed with a bunch of tomatoes and it's super lit. And then we also set up a watering system known as Oyas, which we found out was a technology that came from Africa, ancient African technology. So what you do is like a terracotta jar, you bury it up to its neck in the soil, and then you fill it with water. And what happens is that the plant literally sucks the water out of the Oya through the pores in the pot, because it's just made of clay, so it's pretty porous. So the water the plant sucks out the water from the Oya and takes it up through the roots. And so it's a way of maintaining a steady source of water to these plants without needing a source of running water, which we do not have yet. And also it's a way to give them a constant source of water without wasting any of it, because the jar is buried and then you plug up the top so it won't evaporate. And so all of the water goes to the plant. And y'all, it's working. It's working. The plants are still alive. When we were doing it, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, because I had never done it before. But I went and I was even telling people this might not work, because I just wanted to save face in case all the plants died, But they did it. They look great. They're thriving. They're still alive. We lost one cucumber from transplanting, and honestly, squashes and cucumbers are divas. They're so dramatic. They're very sensitive. So I was not surprised that one of the cucumbers died, but everything else is fine. It's fine.
I was wondering about the heat.
Yeah.
It's so hot.
It's very hot. Very hot. But then the other thing we did is we built a fence out of pallets. And I'm still amazed that we did this. Because we saw one YouTube video, Monica showed me a video of someone building a fence with pallets, and I was like, that seems easy enough. But we had never done it before. but we like put out a call for donations of pallets, and we literally like within the day got like dozens of people offering us pallets. So we were able to accumulate like 50 of these things. And so we started building this fence with metal poles for support, and then the pallets as the main structure. And people literally just like, they had no idea what they were doing, and they just like figured it out. They worked together and figured it out and put up this fence in like an hour or two, y'all. And so now if you go by the lot at Avenida Cesar Chavez in Arno, there is this like legitimately nice looking fence made of pallets. Like, not only did we like build it from the ground up, but it actually looks very nice.
It looks pretty nice.
It's
And
like,
we're going to add some art to it soon as well.
yes, it was just incredible. So like, yeah, the fence in total, the only thing that we spent money on was like the metal posts, and everything else was donated. So that fence cost like $50, y'all. And then the raised beds, I remember we were talking to a comrade, and we were like, how much would it cost for these, for like, 8 raised beds? I think he said like $2,000, and we built ours for free. For free. We just got wood donated from the community, and we did not know how to build raised beds either. We watched the video and we're like, okay, this seems like we could do this. And we built like 8 raised beds. So not a lot of money has gone into this garden, but we got a fence, we got irrigation, we got soil, we got manure that was just donated from a community member, and we got plants in the ground already. It only took like what, like a month and a half?
Yep.
It's pretty
all
cool.
People power.
People power and community
coming together.
Yes, yes. So it's been really incredible. We're going to be out there this coming Sunday at 2 p.m. To put in some more tomato plants, and also to mix up the manure with some the soil we got. We got a very generous donation of goat manure from a farmer in New Mexico. They literally like delivered it to the lot, which is dope. So we're going to mix that manure with the soil, plant some more tomatoes, perhaps finish the fence, and then also refill the Oyas. And then we're also going to be talking about how the Black Panther Party used their breakfast program to show our people that we have the right to food, y'all. Food should not be something that people have to struggle and fight for. Food is a right. Access to food is a right. Access to water is a right. Access to housing is a right. That was the purpose of the Black Panther Party's community defense program. It was certainly about feeding people, but the political purpose was to show our people that we have the right to these things. If they are not provided for us, we have the right to organize to make sure they are provided to us. So we're talking about the history of the Black Panther Party's community defense programs at the Garden this coming Sunday, 2 p.m. Also planting tomatoes, filling the Oyas, and possibly finishing that fence. The reason why it's up in the air is just because we recently discovered in order to get access to the city's water line, it's going to be quite expensive. It's going to be $6,000. And they're probably going to have to dig to get access to the water line. We had folks come out and spray to like show us where they are. And so the fence might cross over where it is. And so we just want to confirm that if we finish building the fence, it won't be a problem later on when we have to put the water in. But for now, we got the Oya set up and they're working, which I still find amazing. And I find it amazing that we built a fence. It's so amazing. So that's what's up at the garden. Also, we are continuing to make weekly deliveries to elders every single Saturday afternoon. We've been doing this for over a year, since the beginning of the pandemic, and we will continue to do it until this pandemic is over, because it is not over. Joe Biden is trying to tell y'all it's over. The CDC is like, don't worry about it, take off your mask. They're trying to say, the vaccine's here, so it's over. But only like less than 40% of the US population has actually been vaccinated.
That's true. And even in New Mexico, it's less than 50%, but yet everything is open. It like makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So clearly it's not over. We're going to keep wearing masks, and we're going to keep doing these deliveries to our elders. We bring them food, we bring them masks, we bring them political education, talking about the APRP and Pan-Africanism, and we'll continue to do that. If you know an elder who would benefit from that program, hit us up at 505-295-0008 or email us at aprpnewmexico@gmail.com, and we'll put them on the list of our deliveries every Saturday. Also, I want to pass it to Monica to talk about Malcolm X Day.
Yes, come through this Saturday, Malcolm X Day, from 4:30 to 9:30. There's going to be so much amazingness happening. So we got Diana Dorn Jones talking about the history of South Broadway, Richard Moore talking about the history and the organizing. The whole space is to talk about the solidarity of African and Brown folks coming together, organizing in the community. South Broadway is where I grew up. It's been hugely gentrified. Gentrification is impacting communities of color, colonized communities. So talking about the solidarity that exists there and uplifting that. We got Cesar from La Raza Unida, who's also going to be sharing words about Malcolm X. We also have some performers that are going to be there, come through. John Brown Breakfast Club is hooking it up, gifting food and cooking food. So there'll be free food there. There'll be food vendors that are going to be there selling food as well. FAM will be out there providing childhood activities. We'll be showing some clips on videos of Malcolm X. So it's just going to be a great day to come and be in community, 4:30 to 9:30 at Dennis Chavez Park, right there in South Broadway. Come through. We can't wait to see y'all there.
Nice. Make sure to go to that this Saturday at the 22nd if you're in Tiwa territory, and we're going to show the flyer at the end with some music so you can get the full. Also coming up, APRP and a number of other orgs in the community are going to organize a 4th of July event, an in-person 4th of July event for those in Tiwa territory who have been to it before. It's a very good family-friendly time. We always have food. We always have revolutionary speakers. We always have cultural workers. And we have a flag burning. So what 4th of July is an anti-American nationalist celebration of resistance to American imperialism, featuring speakers from revolutionary African, indigenous, and working class organizations talking about why we got to reject American identity, talking about why the 4th of July is a big bunch of nonsense, talking about why U.S. imperialism and the U.S. empire must fall, talking about land back, talking about liberation for Africa, and burning a flag. My favorite part is burning the flag. Can you tell? So yeah, it should be a good time. We always make it family friendly. We want to it's going to be our first in-person event that we're organizing as the APRP since last summer, so it will be good. And planning meetings for 4th of July are starting shortly, which means that more details will be available soon, including a location. But just know it's going to be Sunday, July 4th, and stay tuned for more details on our social media. So that's updates with the APRP in New Mexico chapter. And next, let's talk about what's happening with APRP around the world. First and foremost, it is African Liberation Day season. African Liberation Day is almost upon us. The All African People's Revolutionary Party is organizing an international webinar to commemorate African Liberation Day this year. It's going to be 2 days, Sunday, May 23rd and Tuesday, May 25th, both days beginning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. We're going to have a number of panels of revolutionary African speakers representing organizations fighting for Pan-Africanism in Africa and throughout the diaspora. We're going to have cultural workers performing revolutionary African cultural works. We're going to have awards given to revolutionary African heroes that have been on the front lines of the struggle for the liberation of our people. It's going to be an all-around incredible and educational time, and we encourage you to join us. I'm going to drop in the chat a link for you to register for this webinar. It is bit.ly/African Liberation Day 2021. That is case sensitive, so be sure to check in the chat for that link. But please register for the APRP's International African Liberation Day webinar and join us on Sunday, May 23rd and Tuesday, May 25th. Again, that starts at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. It is completely free to join us. And so the registration on Zoom is capped at 100 people. And so if you hit the register link and you find that we're already at that cap, you can watch it live on the APRP International Facebook page, which is facebook.com/AAPRP. And you can also watch it on the APRP International YouTube channel. So please, please, please register if you can. And if we have to hit the cap, you can watch it live on Facebook and YouTube on Sunday, May 23rd and Tuesday, May 25th. Hope to see you there. Also, our comrade Ajamu Umi, of course, has recently released a book, which is a guide to organizing. Hold on, let me look up the exact title. I should have done. Hold it up. Yes, Monique had it ready to go. So Ajamu Umi recently released a guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. Y'all, this book is a step-by-step guide to organizing community defense programs in your neighborhood. If you see all kinds of contradictions from capitalism, if you see people being evicted, if you see people being harassed by the police, if you see people engaged in all kinds of lateral violence and you don't know what to do, people, buy this book. If you hear us saying start an organization, you're like, I have no idea how to do that, buy this book. It is less than $10 and is quite literally a step-by-step guide for how to organize revolutionary community defense programs and revolutionary organizations in your area. You do not have to subscribe to APRP ideology to make use of this book. If you want to know practical steps for how to build what your community needs to defend itself, this is the book you need. Please check it out. It is available on Amazon.com. Again, for less than $10, it's actually $8. I'll drop the link in the chat. And Ajamu is working right now to find an independent publisher in Africa that will distribute the book as well. But for now, you can get that book on Amazon in both digital and paperback format. So please check it out and please spread the word. Other things happening with APRP International, we have a number of All African People's Revolutionary Party sponsored podcasts. We are just one of like 5 different podcasts presented by assorted APRP chapters and circles. We have, of course, the Pantsula podcast presented by our comrades in APRP's Kaji Work Study Circle. They post new episodes Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check it out on their YouTube channel. We encourage you to check those out. They just had an episode about settler colonialism, which was really great, and another episode about African Liberation Day, which was amazing. So their content is really great. Check that out Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and follow them on social media. That's, again, the Kaji Work Study Circle of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Ajambu, who wrote that dope book, and his daughter Shakura, who recently joined the party. Hello, Shakura. Hey, comrade. Also have a weekly show Sundays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. They do it every single week. Sunday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and they do a deep dive into a different topic from a revolutionary African perspective. Last week, the topic was, I don't know why I said that because I do not know. But this week, the topic is Malcolm X and African Liberation Day. They did a special presentation last night, and they're going to do an encore presentation of that workshop this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So if you want to learn about Malcolm X's connection to Pan-Africanism, to the liberation of the African continent, then certainly tune in this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Also, Mzuri. You know Mzuri is amazing because you just saw it. You know she's brilliant because you just heard it. So if you want to hear more from Mzuri, she also has a podcast, the Revolutionary African Woman podcast that she does with her comrade Halimatu Bruce. They do it once a month on Saturdays. The last episode aired, I believe, a week ago, and it was an interview with Ernesto Alaya of the Raza Unida Party, talking about African and Chicano liberation. So you should check that out for sure on the Revolutionary African Woman Facebook page, and then check out that page for more episodes once a month on Saturdays. And then lastly, members of the APRP social media team have a podcast that you can actually access on Spotify. I find that so impressive for some reason. Just because like Spotify is like so ubiquitous. Now the APRP is on Spotify, thanks to time. But it's called the Forward Ever Podcast. It is presented by members of the APRP social media task force, a number of brilliant youth who have revolutionized our social media, man. We were like stuck in 2005, to be quite honest with you, and they took us into the 20th. They took us into the future, and now it's like so professional. We have like a brand. We use all the same fonts and colors. It's all like uniform. I'm just like, damn. So they did that for us, and they also host the Forward Ever podcast, and you can listen to episodes of that podcast on Spotify. So that's 5 different APRP podcasts. Y'all, like, damn, we're out here. We're out here. So that was the APRP International updates. And now let's move on into the closing. This has been Weekly Pan-African News, presented to you by the New Mexico chapter of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. My name is Onyesanu. This is my comrade Monica. We are both members of New Mexico chapter. We do this show every single Thursday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time, which means we will be back next Thursday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. And next Thursday, we're going to be talking about Palestine. The United States government provides billions of dollars in funding to the illegal Zionist state in occupied Palestine in order for Israel to bomb and commit genocide against the indigenous people of that land. So we're going to be talking about why African people must be in solidarity with the Palestinian struggle for liberation, why our struggles are connected, and And we're hoping to have a Palestinian comrade providing a first-hand perspective on that struggle on next week. So stay tuned for more details, and please tune in next Thursday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Also, it is Thursday, which means there are new articles on the Hood Communist blog. There's actually only one article today. It is a collective piece written by the entire editorial team of Hood Communists about African Liberation Day. The title is African Liberation Day, We Unify or We Die. It's just that simple. We unify or we die. So please check out the latest article on hoodcommunist.org. I'm going to put it in the chat so you can read it right now. And please read it and share it and spread the word about African Liberation Day. We want to thank y'all so much for joining us and for your support. And also, if you're hearing us talk, if you are watching this program and you're not active in an organization fighting for justice, please join an organization fighting for justice. The organization you want to see does not exist. Build that organization. If you don't know how to build that organization, then you better buy Ajamu's book and read it with your friends and start building the change you want to see in the world. Thank you so much. Stay ready for revolution and stay tuned for some music and some flyers for upcoming APRP events.